vulnerable, says we're resilient. But it's necessary for us, as those who are working, who are able-bodied, who are healthy, to make sure that our seniors are being taken care of. That means that if we have the opportunity to invest in real services, to make sure that real services are able to go out and visit the homes of folks that may not have people to look after them, then that's what we need to do. We used to do that several years back in the past administration with Steve Lickey, and as a result, we have not been able to restore those type of connections. We also need to make sure that the city is clean. The city needs to be clean. I want to say it again. The city needs to be clean. If I hear one more person, one more of my friends come home and talk about how bad the city looks, I want to scream. It's because of pride that I want to scream. I don't think it looks that bad. But if you want to listen to criticism for people who've been away and come back, they see things differently. I take pride in making sure that we are a clean city. We take pride every summer. We sponsor a youth cleanup, making sure that the kids from the neighborhoods are cleaning up their areas, making sure they're putting trash in trash bags. But how do we make sure that that's a continuous thing? Why should we make sure that things are a continuous thing? It's only necessary that when we have an environment that's clean, it becomes conducive to growth. When we have vacant homes in the area that the street used to be occupied by residents, that those residents, those kids have the opportunity to obviously return back home if they choose to, if they come out of college, or they have the opportunity to invest in the next door home that they grew up in. This city can grow. This city can be once what it was and even better. But it takes all of us. And I am asking you right now, as I've always asked, that your voices are not only heard at these sort of functions, but come down to council meetings. We meet every second and fourth Mondays of the month. Every second and fourth Mondays of the month. And I got even smarter with it. I work with WNIT. We got public access restored. We got some time for folks to have their time, to have their own TV shows. And then voila, we're able to put the council meetings on there via TV, live TV. So the folks that didn't want to show up, the residents that didn't want to show up, they can watch them on TV. It is important that the only time that you get, it is important that you stay involved. Don't allow these 4-year cycles to only be in time that you want to participate. We have budgeting every summer. Every summer. And one thing I would like to say is that I think it's necessary that we do have budgeting in neighborhoods. I've seen a model of it down in Tallahassee, Florida, where they go out to different neighborhoods, give them monies, grant dollars to begin their plans for that particular neighborhood. Those plans will be put inside a budget that's going to be voted upon and made sure that it reaches the budget so you have some measurable outcomes. We've also talked about public safety. Public safety has been a number one indicator on how people feel about their environment. I'm going to get there. If you do not feel safe in your environment, you don't participate. Saying that crime has gone down, but murders have doubled, that scares me even more. When we have a police force where the morale has gone down because of outside influence of leadership that's been injected in, we need to rethink how we look at these things. The Board of Public Safety versus the Citizens Review Board. I would like to pick a Citizens Review Board because that includes all of you. Making changes based upon what I think does not work for this community, but making changes based on what we think makes the change. This is a democracy, folks. It's highly important that you participate in this democracy. If we do not participate in this democracy, it will turn into the dictatorship that we all say we do not want to see. It has no choice. So again, I'm imploring you to come on out to the council meetings. and also to participate. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thanks for your patience with me, too. It's not my habit to appear late at events, so I should probably start just by explaining myself on that front. We had a long day, started at about 4:30 in the morning, and the press secretary came over to need me to go over to the South Shore and celebrate the new express rail service we have linking us closer to Chicago. But right after that, we had to hit the road to head down to Indianapolis because a number of decisions that are being made in Indianapolis are affecting South Bend. I chair the organization of the mayors of the largest 20 or so cities around the state in order to advocate for cities like South Bend that have a lot of skin in the game when these decisions are being made. And the only time that the governor and the senator who's in charge of the finance committee were available to meet was kind of mid-afternoon. And so we did those meetings and then jumped in the car and came right back up here. So it was only in order to make sure that we were speaking up for and advocating for South Bend that I'm running a few minutes late, but I do apologize for that. I want to thank you for this neighborhood organization's activity and interest in the city. It's only as a function of the interest and passion that our citizens have that our city comes to anything at all. And I know for a fact throughout my time as mayor that this is among the most active and dedicated and committed neighborhoods in the city of South Bend when it comes to people being eager to take the fate of the neighborhood into their own hands and improve conditions in the neighborhood for all. So I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for the chance to be here. I think I can probably skip my background by now. You probably know about as much as you care to know about that. I just want to focus a little bit on the results and the record. Because you have the benefit of a choice this year between people who have records. And so I want to say a few things that I think are most important about mine and this administration's. When I ran for office, job number one was creating jobs. And that's still true. That's still probably the most important thing we can do to lift the city up and improve it. That's why we made so many changes to the way we do business and really re-engineered the whole department of community investment that deals with planning and economic development of the city. And the results are coming in. Last year, we announced approximately 1,400 new jobs in the city of South Bend, which for a city our size is a pretty big deal. I'm particularly pleased to note that 1,100 of those jobs are in what I would describe as the most economically distressed part of the city, the west side, though we've had job announcements throughout the city. And also that more than 400 of those are not only announced, but already have people working in those jobs as we speak, drawing a paycheck, supporting their families, supporting local businesses. And that's how economic growth happens. That didn't just happen on its own. It took a lot of hard work, took a lot of patience, took a lot of partnerships. And it took an approach that is based on working with other people in order to get things done. Because I learned very early in this job that even though they call you mayor and you get the big office in the corner of the county city building, you're just conducting. The people playing the instruments are the neighbors, they are the businesses, they're the families, they are the churches. And all you can do is conduct, try to set a tone, try to establish what the priorities can be for the community and for the government, for the policy outlook of the future. But all we can do is conduct. And so working with other people to get things done is how we've been able to deliver that kind of growth. We've seen $200 million of private investment in the city of South Bend last year alone, something we haven't seen in years. So we're seeing that economic growth, but we also know it hasn't reached everyone. It hasn't gotten everywhere it needs to get to. And that's why we need to continue the approach and to continue focusing on what works and making sure that that's extended to all. I want to talk about neighborhoods, and in particular, the number one neighborhood issue that was raised when I was in the neighborhoods campaigning for this office in the first place. And that was neighbors saying, what is taking the city so long to deal with the vacant and abandoned homes in my neighborhood? And I want to stress that this is important even if there's not one vacant or abandoned home on your block. One of the best things we can do for a healthy neighborhood on the east side is to make sure that on the west side, on, for example, Lincoln Way West, where folks are forming their first impression of our city when they arrive at our airport and come into our downtown, to make sure that that's looking up too. It's one of the reasons we initiated the ambitious effort to address 1,000 houses in 1,000 days, to fix up as many as we can, but to tear down the ones we can. because we can't let those houses continue to harm the people who live near them. Pleased to report that as of today, last time I checked, we're at 781 houses that have either been repaired, or they've been torn down, or they've been put under contract. And one of the reasons that more houses have been repaired than we expected was that we've changed our approach to code enforcement in order to make sure that we have a cleaner and a better neighborhood profile all throughout the city, that we hold homeowners and landowners accountable for the condition of the streets. I also want to mention the record on public safety. As I've communicated repeatedly, according to the FBI, property and violent crime in the city are down dramatically from where they were 10 or 20 years ago. But that's not any comfort if it's happened close to you. And we are tracking 2 series of property crime that have been especially problematic in this neighborhood. There's one series that began last year, affected a number of homes, largely on the area around Wayne Street. The MO of that particular case had to do with somebody going through the pillowcase. Very sophisticated, you can tell that they were carefully surveilling the houses, looking for the right time and opportunity to go in. Not clear where exactly that perpetrator is, because we've seen a similar MO actually now in other parts of St. Joe County and even Elkhart, indicating that they tend to sweep an entire area. It's very sophisticated, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be catching them. And that's what we're working on with the police department in particular. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to get to know the captain who's been newly assigned to specialize in this region. So instead of having our police captains organized by time of day, we have them organized by region so they become experts in it. That's how neighborhood and community policing is supposed to work. And so that's part of our approach. We also know there's been a more recent series. We believe, based on the intel that I'm getting, that it's a different perpetrator. There seems to be a different pattern. Also one we're taking seriously. So we recognize we've got a long way to go in safety or in any other area of policy in the city. But we're working hard to get there, and our approach works. I want to stress that it's the 150th anniversary of our city. We are, hopefully you know that, because I've been saying it until I'm blue in the face. It's an exciting time, not only because we have a birthday, we have a chance to throw ourselves a big party, much of which will happen, by the way, right around here, as the city really lights up around May 22nd, which is kind of official birthday of the city. But also because it invites us to think about the bigger picture and the longer sweep in the history of our city. And it invites us to think about the fact that this year is the first year of the next 50 years. And to ask ourselves what choices we can make now that are going to position our city well for the long run and for the future. I believe that this decade will go down in history as a pivotal one for the city of South Bend. I believe this decade will be remembered as the time when we finally came to the end of the soul searching and the pain of the transformation that has struck us really since 1963, when Studebaker closed its doors, but also the decade in which we realized we don't need Studebaker to come back in order to have a great economic future. And we're seeing that now with the jobs that are being created, the people who are getting back to work, and the industry that's emerging, in industries that didn't even exist when Studebaker closed its doors, and that are delivering for our people. Specific to this neighborhood, this is an area where there's a lot of exciting development and growth happening, and again, I know many of the people in this room have had a lot to do with that, making your voices heard, and advocating for your neighborhood, as every great neighborhood does. We've got a lot of citywide treasures here, and we've got some new ones forming. The neighborhood that's going to take shape on the former Transpo site, to see a maintenance facility turn into what's going to be a phenomenal neighborhood close to downtown, close to the river, and close to both the Notre Dame and IU campuses. It's an extremely exciting development. And it hasn't been easy to figure out exactly how to do it, but I think we found a way that is going to work for the city of South Bend. And again, we're just conducting, right? We said very deliberately that we weren't going to dictate it as a city, but that we were going to work with a number of different partners to try to make sure there was a good outcome. And I believe that's what we're going to have. Howard Park, one of the most, is that a time?
No, I'm sorry. Let me try to come in.
Sorry. You look at Howard Park and you think about the potential. It's already a very special park. I run through a couple times a week myself when I take my morning jog. I'm always sizing up and noting which of the lights are sometimes out on East Bank and calling it in. But you look at Howard Park and you think about a park strategy that really looks at how we could have iconic parks in the city. We have a park for everyone, a small park for everyone in the city. The park I grew up around, Nokomis Park. There's nothing to it, just a little triangle, but it was mowed, and if you had imagination, it was a great baseball diamond or soccer field or pirate ship or just about anything else you wanted it to be. So we try to make sure it's something like that for everybody, but we also have some major distinctive assets in the community. On the west side, we have assets like the rec centers, Martin Luther King and the Charles Black Center. And closer to downtown, we have assets like Howard Park. And I think Howard Park could become a truly iconic park for the city of South Bend. But this is 2015, and we can't reach into a bottomless pocket to make it happen. It's going to take public-private partnerships to truly draw out what the potential of this magnificent park is. I know there's already been a lot of work done on that with, among other things, the Rotary proposals that came in that were being looked at when I first was running for office. I think we're going to need to keep exploring that, get it right. But you also look at some of the possibilities, looking to our own history, what was great about it. The Studebaker Fountain was right in Howard Park. It's an incredible thing. If we could find a partnership that would allow us to get that thing up and running again, what a fantastic thing it would be. Notre Dame, not without controversy, but Notre Dame and the city are partnering on a boathouse. They are giving the city the boathouse they currently use. They're also giving the city, and I think there's been a little confusion or misinformation about this, they're giving to the city use of the floating dock, as well as at the end of the lease period, the building itself that they're putting up. And maybe most importantly of all, making sure that there are going to be classes held for community members. I know crew and rowing, river sports have always been thought of as kind of a sport for the privileged. I think South Bend has a chance to show that doesn't have to be true by making sure the kids from around the community and around the different neighborhoods have access to that. We've made sure that Notre Dame is committed to doing that if they're going to make that investment in that park, right close to where we're standing right here today. So those are just a few of the things that are in store for this area. Also, I got to mention the Smart Streets program. And I know some folks are a little skeptical about the whole one-way, two-way thing. But I hope you have a sense of at least what we're trying to do in terms of the sort of urban fabric we're trying to create, because we did it right there in Ferguson. And I know it was torn up for a while. I know people were real mad while it was disrupted, but I hope you can see, now that it's done, what we have in mind and what we're trying to bring to Maine and to St. Joseph and to Michigan and to Lincoln Way West and to Western as part of the Smart Streets program. It's not just which way the traffic goes or what kind of people you have on the street. It's about what it feels like to walk around your city and whether your city feels like a city again. And I believe South Bend is beginning to feel like a city again in the right ways. And that's going to have its ups and downs and its twists and turns. And because we're experimenting boldly and trying new things, sometimes we're going to take a couple steps back, but then we're going to take 3 steps forward because we're getting really good at this. And I'm really proud of the work that our administration team, but above all, our entire community, including neighborhood associations, including members of the Common Council, willing to work together with each other and with the administration to get stuff done. I'm proud of the results that has been delivered for the city. So, eagerly looking forward to the questions or ideas that this group may have. But hope on the basis of what we've achieved and what we hope to achieve, that I could earn your support for another 4 years as the mayor of South Bend. Thank you. Sure, yeah, I'd love to see, living close to downtown, I'd love to see a hardware store right in the heart of the city. And you know, sometimes one of the things I contend with in this job is I think folks imagine that we get to decide where the businesses go, right? And the only way I can decide where a hardware store went is if I were the owner of a hardware store. But what we can do from city policy is to try to create the conditions where businesses like that succeed. Now, specific to hardware, the good news, first of all, bad news actually. So the business model for hardware is going to these big box stores. You got your Lowe's on the south side, you got your other Lowe's on the east side, the Home Depot, Menards, and those. Largely because they have such buying power that their prices are hard to compete with. But we still have, if not quite old neighborhood, remember Mickler's or places like that? If not that, we do have some more localized access to hardware stores. Yes, there was, and unfortunately that's not here anymore. We do have close to where I live at Portage and Elwood. There's a hardware store right in the Martins there, which I think is great, and a couple of other, in Western we still have the smaller, more kind of family oriented. Say again? Mishawaka, okay, yeah, Mishawaka Village this way too. But you know, the real question is, okay, what kind of retail can make it in the downtown area in 2015? We know it's going to be different. That's going to be true. But there is, I think, opportunity, and that's part of what we're trying to do with the streetscape work. It's not for its own sake. It's to increase the foot traffic that makes those who do own, whether it's restaurants or whether it's stores, more confident in making an investment. And we think the strategy is working. We think it's part of why downtown restaurants have doubled just in the last 3 years, because they're starting to see the foot traffic pick up. But we know it's going to be a long and winding road, and we're working hard to set the conditions for success.
I think it was a great question. Thank you for asking. One thing I want you to understand is that we will all like to see those sorts of things downtown. I think the downtown deserves to have the accessible retail in those environments, in that environment. But one thing that we do not talk about as it relates to downtown development is why downtown is suffering and why downtown is empty right now. Right now, the real estate for downtown being assessed at a higher level than the market rate pushes the taxes far beyond what you're supposed to be paying. As a result, when you're trying to buy the real estate, to put your business inside of it, you're out of a lot of money before you even get started. So investors, private investors that probably will want to invest in a particular area, such as downtown, will probably be scared off, to say the least, with investing in that type of environment. We need to get our buildings and assessments back down to market rate. The city needs to work with county assessor's office and making sure that the state statute is actually being applied to our local area. We talk about, we have to build density. Yes, I've heard that conversation as well. But what happens is that we do not invest the dollars where they need to be invested at. It's not the streets. It's the ability to create small business programming using CRA funds, Community Reinvestment Act funds, and that has allowed the banks to come in and say, you want to open up a hardware store, show your business plan, they work with you on it, you submit it, hopefully you get the loan at a very low rate to pay back, then you open up your hardware store. That's the only way that we're going to save this economy here in South Bend, is employing people or helping people push them towards becoming small business owners. There was a time I was able to walk to Saul's hardware store on Western Avenue. I remember playing with my friend in the backyard, I was throwing apples, and I ended up breaking out his mom's back window. I was scared. It was terrible. And my mom ended up taking me on to the hardware store. I had about $20 in my pocket. Saul looked at me, saw that I was obviously scared and probably in a lot of trouble. He took the $20 and gave it right back to me and told me not to do it anymore. It was free. We had those things in our neighborhood. We still do. We can have it there. But the baseline is making sure the real estate is allowing it to happen. Never voted for a tax increase. I've never voted for a rental rate increase. I don't vote for those sorts of things because the baseline is not being taken care of. And when you can't spend your money in an area, the area can't grow. That's basic mathematics. We can't do it like that. We have to make sure that you have as much money as you can to continue to reinvest in the area. That's by spending your dollars. That's just how any economy will work. 1 + 1 still equals 2.
Cities have like a landlord directory and also an inspection system where it's usually part of code enforcement, not necessarily. And they come in and inspect rental units because a lot of times they get to the point of no return, the landlord walks away. What do we have? We have a vacant housing problem. So what do you two think about having something like that? Do you think it works? Have you studied it? Have you seen it? That kind of thing.
There has to be like that, yes.
Yes. Most towns I've heard it's been very successful.
We currently have actually a system like that. I think there has been some time put into a new position where a person is actually combing through those records and looking for those homeowners or landlords, as we will call them. And recently, the current administration came in and asked us to bump up the fees so that we can pay for the city employee to do the job that they're already being paid for. I didn't vote for that either. I thought it was a good idea to make sure that we were getting some output and some results out of that. The other side of that, not necessarily having a list of people that we do know that own these homes. It's the aggressive and proactive enforcement of those homes that are a problem. Again, this is why I'm on TV. I called code enforcement once, I called code enforcement twice, I called code enforcement 3 times, even the building department talk about what's going on at Colfax Washington Apartments. The roof is caving in, the building has cracks all through the walls, the foundation is terrible, it needs to be condemned. After once, twice, 3 times phone calls, emails, I become frustrated and I'm scared for the folks that live in the building. We have a press conference there. We hope that these things are going to be taken care of. The homeowner, the building owner, the landlord lives out in California. He didn't care. I talked to him on the phone a couple times. He just didn't want to give. So what happens now is that the next conversation is, well, Henry, we need to get inside of people's homes to make sure that they can just say this is what's going on. Really? We just went in there. We combed through an entire area. We saw the building look like it's getting ready to fall over, fall down. We see that there is major electrical problems. This building should be cited and condemned. Guess what happens? Nothing. So it starts at the very start of what we're supposed to be doing as a city. If you're paying as a taxpayer to us to make sure that we're doing a job, you pay us a salary, and then you make sure that the departments are working at a high level, then that's what this department should be doing. Not trying to figure out other ways to raise fees, raise rates, raise pay in order to do a job that's already in the code book and state statute. That's asinine. I'm sorry, it is. We cannot take any more high taxes and high fees. We have a 30% poverty rate here in South Bend, Indiana. 74% of our kids are on free or reduced lunch. 1 out of every 2 are born into poverty. And so I'm going to continue to ask you to pay more to get less. No, not in my administration. That would never happen.
So, short answer is yeah, I think there's a lot to that idea. I think see a lot of cities that have registries. Some of them do universal landlord registries. Some of them do just a vacant abandoned property registry. Even that would go a long way for us because a lot of times we're trying to get to the bottom of these vacant and abandoned homes. And what we'll find, I would say, is 123, St. Louis Street. You go look who owns it. It'll be a shell company called 123 St. Louis Street LLC. And the address of that shell company, if you're trying to find who to send the bill to, 123 St. Louis Street. So if it's abandoned, it doesn't do you any good. So that does make a lot of sense. And by the way, this is another one of those things that the State House is trying to take away from us. They're trying to block the flexibility to do that with a moratorium. We think we've held the line on that, but it's one of the reasons I'm in Indianapolis from time to time this year to hold the line. As was mentioned earlier, we did have an initiative that the administration proposed in order to be able to do that and also have a fee that would cover the cost. So you can't get something for nothing. So it has to get paid for somehow. Our approach was to fund it by collecting a fee from the actual irresponsible homeowner. The alternative approach is to have you pay, to have it come out of the tax dollars in general, right? So it's got to be paid for somehow. Do we just want to pay for it in general out of our tax money, or do we want to target the cost of that to the actual irresponsible homeowners who were responsible for that cost arising in the first place? Most cities prefer to do it that way. We prefer to do it that way, and that's what most, but not all, of the council voted for.
In particular, in the Howard Park East Bank area, I'll throw some out if nobody has any. There's a lot of vacant lots here. By the way, I'm going to get you guys some water, okay? Is Beth here? Beth, is there any bottled water in there? Okay, thank you. This is Beth Green, and are you president of the? No, this year. So, what about the vacant lots here? I mean, we need to infill them. We need to get families back in here. What is it, the chicken, the egg, which comes first? Business, homes?
Sure, so it's a great question. It's one in particular that we are confronted with when the community is dealing with some of these vacant and abandoned homes that did have to come down and couldn't be saved, right? A vacant lot is better than a crumbling vacant house, but it's still not what we want to see, right? What we want to see is something on the lot. Now, the best thing you can do for that, especially in cases where the city does not actually own it, which is true most of the time. In those cases, the best thing you can do for any piece of land is to surround it with a healthy economy. Right? So we know that any property, any building, any house that's in trouble, one of the best things we can do is boost the value of that land by making sure that the value of the land around it is in better shape. How do we do that? Well, first of all, making sure that more people have jobs. I know you're asking about, neighborhood, and I'm giving you kind of the big picture answer, but that's the biggest picture thing you can do, is make sure more people have work, so more people have income, so that there's more going on. Another thing is smart mix of uses, right? So one of the things that this part of town has going for it is you have that mixed use. You have homes where you can walk from the home to you get a slice of pizza, right? And even to work, right? We'd love to see more people walking, or at least within biking distance of their workplace. And this is the part of town that actually lends itself very well to that. The whole town used to work that way. But this is a part of town where that's still possible. When that happens, it becomes easier to boost the values that enable density. On those few city lots, vacant lots that are owned by the city, we're experimenting, because the reality, remember, it took us 50 years for our population to go from 130,000 to 101. So we've had that contraction in population. I hope it'll take less than 50 years, but it's going to take a while for it to go back, right? So just by nature of math, it's going to take a while before somebody's ready to build a home on every lot in South Bend that used to have a home on it. And so the question is, how do we best hold the land in the meantime? And we've experimented with everything from just planting it with flowers or clover. It doesn't cost taxpayer money to mow, which is a nice thing about clover, and it looks good. To trying to encourage people, there's a great example of this on the west side actually, with Al's House of Style. Encourage people to acquire the property next to them, fence it in as a sideline, and look after it. We've got a lot of homeowners who are actually willing to do that on their own. And we just got to make sure they're not penalized for doing it. So thanks to the Good Samaritan law, we're able to do that. The next level, where we haven't got to yet, but I'd like to explore in dialogue with the county, is some kind of tax benefit for somebody who's willing to do that. So that if somebody wants to improve the conditions immediately around them, they have a tax benefit, not a tax penalty, for taking responsibility for that land too. So, I can't, parcel by parcel, we can talk about each one and what the future of it is, but that's what I think it's going to take is to really see the infill that we'd like to see. And so we have fewer, what I would call missing teeth in the city when you look out the window of the county's infill.
See, it's a question. So it's a big question. My wife and I invested in a home maybe about 6, 7 years ago. Probably maybe once or 8. We have a 6-year-old son, and usually when you have property that you buy, you want to usually keep it inside of the family so that you start building wealth. And as a result of the crisis that we've all went through nationally with our housing market, we ended up having, a house that was upside down. It's a gorgeous house. Gorgeous, I think it is. So what happens is that, how do we start improving our property values? Well, when the 1,000 Homes, 1,000 Days initiative came out, I was less than excited, to say the least. I knew that when you knock down a home, regardless of what the condition of that home is, you're not going to be able to return a new structure in that area per state statute, because the setbacks have changed per state law. So at that particular time, you would need that lot and the lot next door in order to return new housing into that area. The only way city services are able to function is if we have property taxes coming in. So if we reduce our ability to grow, we're going to reduce our abilities to service you. I put through legislation, got it passed through the Common Council to make sure that we will be lock in step with the mayor's office about any and every home that was being demolished. I'm not going to fight with you about demolishing them, just make sure that we know why it's being demolished. Have not seen any of those results occurring today. We would like to see those results. Why are these homes being knocked down? What is the condition of the homes? Who are the assessors or property people that are going out there and saying, well, this home needs to come down because it's structurally deficient, or this house should be able to be renovated? You asked about the vacant lots and how do we explore this and expand this. There are programs that they call voucher programs. I know everybody's probably like, oh, those are subsidized housing programs. We don't know if those in our area. But guess what? It's free money, folks. It allows people to return back into the neighborhood so you have life. Prime example, I took a trip up to New York, Albany, New York, several years ago with the Chamber of Commerce to explore nanotechnology. The mayor there, he emptied out his subsidized housing units, which were located downtown, put the folks back into the neighborhoods with the voucher program. The federal government came in, restored the homes, and now are paying out on those homes, making sure that the money is still circulating back and forth throughout the local economy. There's another measure called the choice programs, when you work in concert with the local housing authority to help improve the housing in given areas throughout the city and making sure that you have an outcome. The legislation I put through was to ask for a plan and not allow the development to be an afterthought. Now it's an afterthought. Maybe we put some gardens there. Maybe we put some monkey bars there. Maybe we do nothing. Or maybe I call the park department every 2 days to ask them to cut the grass because obviously the homeowner doesn't want to do it because you knocked down the house. Or we can't find a homeowner. So it has created a whole new set of issues that we have to pay for. You have to pay for as a taxpayer. Employing programs, putting in programs that will help redefine given areas or help maintain or grow them is what will result in a stronger South Bend and a stronger economy. I'm being honest. We just can't go through the neighborhoods with a wrecking ball and thinking that all of a sudden something magical is going to happen. $7,000, $8,000 per home. And wouldn't it be grand if folks who are able to bid out on those homes were local? At least they will be able to employ people here locally and spend the money back here locally. It doesn't happen. We have out-of-state contractors coming in here from Michigan, trying to figure out why the guy from Kewanee, Indiana is getting most of the work what he used to. We need to make sure when we are spending those types of dollars and knocking down and killing our capacity to grow, at the very least, we'll be able to keep that money here in this community. It doesn't happen. So, to answer your question in line and also in short, we need to make sure before we do anything, we have to have development, not as an afterthought, but as the plan before we destroy or knock down the house.
The person couldn't come, but they called and asked if we asked of you gentlemen. They want to know what your vision is for Howard Park. What do you think needs to be done? And, we probably need to limit the response to like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, because we're kind of winding up here on time. We like to keep our meetings to an hour because that way you want to come back another time. And who wants to go first on what should be in Howard Park?
When I first got up and started speaking about, who Henry was and why, I ran for office and why I'm here and why Henry may appear to be a bit crazy at times and nuts. I'm not none of those things. I may be a little nuts sometimes. The truth of the matter is that what do you want in Howard Park? Our democracy, our leadership needs to start listening to you. I have 1,000,001 ideas about what Howard Park probably should look like. I'm creative. I'm an artist. That's what my God-given talent is. Well, what is best is that you, the folks who live in this area, say, hey, this is what works for us. We live here. This is what we like to see. And as a result of the city working in concert with you, you get it. It's simple. This is a democracy. You are supposed to participate. You pay us to work for you. You don't work for me. That's how this thing works. So I would like to know what you want. I came to the last meeting, I saw the plans, thought they were pretty good plans. Is that what you want? And if that's what you want, then we work on that. But if that's not what you want, just throw it away. So we can restart it. It's not a problem.
Let me start out by the part I agree with, which is that anything we do to a park has to have a lot of input from those who use it the most, those who live nearest it. And that's part of the process we've tried to embrace. First with the Parks Master Plan process that's gone on up to now, and with any future dedicated master plan that might come specific to Howard Park. I will offer my thoughts just from a citywide perspective about what I think is special about Howard Park. Actually, soon after I got elected, I got invited to an event, it's called the Mayor's Institute on City Design. They invite 5 or 6 mayors to get together. They kind of lock you in a room with some of the best architects and design people you can find. And you just kind of workshop a different issue. that your city's facing. The one I brought in was I brought in a map of the area around the river and the parks. And these people, a couple of people, really top-notch architecture and design people, asked me a very interesting question. And the question was, they'd never been to South Bend, so they're just reading these names off a map. They said, what is it about the personality of Howard Park that makes it different from the personality of Weaver Park? And I thought it was a very interesting question, and I couldn't offer an answer sitting there. I've been thinking about it ever since. I think part of what goes on in Howard Park is that it is perhaps the most significant park in the specific perspective, from the perspective of relating to the river. So our relationship to the river, which has become hugely important, right? This is the generation here in this room that figured out that a river was not just a conveyor belt or a sewer for industry, but was a treasure and an asset, something that adds value to land and gives recreational opportunities to all of us. So much of that is mediated through what goes on in Howard Park. That's why the boathouse is so important. That's why the way the trail cuts along the river is so important. Whether you're jogging alongside it or actually getting in a boat in it, your relationship to the river is you are a resident of South Bend. There are few places where that take place better than a place like Howard Park. So I know that's got to be part of it. The other thing I've noticed about great parks and iconic parks, memorable parks that help define a city and people's relationship to the city, and I think any park this close to downtown ought to aim high and have that goal, is that they feature great public art. And I think we need to have a conversation about what kind of public art might contribute to a sense of identity for Howard Park. And again, whether it's the butterflies or so many other things, people here already understand how important public art is. But how do we integrate that into the actual fabric of the way the park is laid out? There's already been some very good thinking on that, and I think that needs to be another one of the pillars for how we think about the future of the park. Again, very, very optimistic about this specific part. Let me just add one other thing, which is the future of the center, that senior center, that could be reimagined in a number of ways to serve the whole community. That we probably haven't been creative enough with what we can do there, and I think that's got to be part of it next too. Thank you.
Well, part of the thing that gives the neighborhood character is the scale of the neighborhood to the people. Now, the Governor Hope developer submitted plans for a new high-rise building over here, and then planned to, then came back and wanted to change the plan, and it was turned down by two planning commissions. The common council came in and approved the changes to allow him to have a structure built a higher level than was originally zoned for this neighborhood. Sure. So why that was done.
And also on those plans, he submitted specific design plans along with that, and he also signed the documents and agreed not to take tax abatement or C point. So there were specific plans on that got submitted when that land was sold to him for a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about changing things like that?
You know, I have this theory that South Bend, city of South Bend needs to get out of the business of economic development. And I say that for a number of different reasons, but for the main reason why you asked, there's often too many times that we are supporting, announcing, and we never get what we are signing up for, or half of it comes through, or a quarter of it comes through, and it's kind of like, well, why did we spend that money doing it, or spend the time doing it? That particular development you're talking about, I think it was Mr. David Matthews' building across the street. I supported that particular measure for this one reason only. He was spending his own money. He was spending his own money. And what happens is that the city usually, we have been, since I've been on council the last 7.5 years, close to 7.5 years, we have had taken the ability to steer this person here, steer this person there, give this person extra added incentives. You know, we sort of pick winners and losers in this game. That was the first time, maybe out of maybe a handful, that I actually saw somebody come to the table with their own and pay for it. We need support developments like that. Now, did it fit the design specifications that was laid out prior to? Is it too high? Is it too small? And those are the details. But he was spending his own money. And then he was creating more tax dollars for the given area. That's a plus, and we need more of those things.
Let me explain the policy framework that we try to employ, whether it's a specific development or any other that could affect this neighborhood. And that's two things. One, as a general rule, we want development to happen. We support development, whether it's just by getting out of the way or whether it's by engaging actively in a public-private partnership. But part two of that is context and the importance of context. And that's where planning comes in. That's where commitments come in. And that's where the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Plan Commission play the role that they play. I will say that I think we can probably update the machinery of that process a little bit. There's a lot of drama, there's a lot of waiting, and no matter whether you favor or disfavor a certain development, it can be a very frustrating process because you don't even know where it plays, and then sometimes it gets overridden. That's why we're looking at a policy innovation called a form-based code, which I think is very promising for South Bend. And the idea of a form-based code, to make a long story short, has to do with making sure that you lay out what kind of development makes sense in the context that it's being proposed to be built in. It's not so much about kind of measuring out the setbacks and that sort of thing. It's about saying, here's what we would like. It's making it easier to do that. And that, again, it can only happen with input from the neighborhood, because how else do you know what the context is? So that's the policy direction we're moving forward with. And I think if we get it right, it will help us maybe have a few bumps along the road, as we've seen with some of the drama around individual proposed developments in this part of the city or any other part of town.
We're almost at an hour. We like to keep our meetings to an hour. Is there one last possible question involving Howard Park East Bank? Yeah.
The Antica project, you know, the work property went over that, and then there's a property on Hill and Colfax. There's supposedly working development after that. What happened to those two projects?
So short answer, Hill and Colfax, we expect groundbreaking there within a couple of weeks. I know there's been, again, there's been some delays. I've learned about the hurry up and wait aspect of development, but my understanding is dirt will be moving within a month over there, so that's encouraging. The other project, a little more complicated. A lot of it has to do with finances on the private side, that there's only so much we can do about, as well, again, as making sure that it fits in the context that everybody can agree on. But let me just turn back to the overall policy framework, which is, in addition to one other thing, which is we want development that really respects the river and makes use of the river, right, and gets value enhancement out of the river. That's what's made some of the new development in that area so successful. And that's what we would want to see on the wharf site. And it can absolutely happen. Whether it happens in the exact configuration that's been talked about, whether the numbers add up, without an unaffordable contribution for the city, I'm not sure. But I do believe that it's absolutely possible. The site has the potential. And what will make that potential a reality more than anything else is to continue the growth and development all around it so that the value of the whole thing goes up, so that the numbers add up for the private sector until the day when they're not even calling us to ask us to help.
Sometimes I think I lost it.
There's the property on Hill and Colfax. There was a project, I just don't know what happened to the starting date.
Well, we didn't know either, and we've been waiting on that, just like you've been waiting on that. I went to a meeting probably about 2 years ago, maybe. We attended at the Italian restaurant now is out there to help me out. Carmela's, thank you, it was Carmela's, and at that meeting, the business owners, was probably a table of about 30 business owners, asking the same question, but also trying to push the city to help partner with that particular site. The thing that was on the table, the issue that was on the table was a parking lot at first, if I remember correctly, and that was like a no, why was it the parking lot we didn't put it? So then we came off of that, and then there was another conversation about, well, you guys haven't submitted any business plans, so why did you care? It didn't come from my corner, obviously it came from another corner. And so the business owners are obviously turned off, and of course, I mean, I couldn't believe that took place. I think that whole game right there with that particular lot is we're going to wait and see what happens. Obviously, we're waiting on it. It hasn't happened. The other lot that you were speaking about was Mr. Frank Perry and William Panzica. Those guys are phenomenal. I enjoy talking to them. I guess it's an artist thing, but they have like these way out ideas that are super creative, all super creative. I mean, you would want to buy it right then and there. Are they pie in the sky ideas? No, probably not. overexposed area. In some cases, they probably could. However, folks like that are really adamant, energetic, need to be at the planning table, sometimes maybe more than often than the city is, and recreating an atmosphere for development. I said this before, we need to get out of that game. We do. The minute that we get out of that game, the chances are for more development coming into the city, whether our streets are 5-way, 6-way, or 12-way, we will start seeing a lot more interest, a lot more investment in our area. But if we're putting up tax abatement forms, we're putting up this specification, that specification, you can't do that because I don't think my friend would like you building next to his house or his new development may cause a competition up here. That's when we start getting in trouble. It needs to be an even playing field at the market value, and you will start seeing South Bend develop pretty fast, actually. We're in a very good position in this area, and I'm across America. We will develop pretty fast.
We want to thank the guys so much for coming on a Monday night. There's many things you could be doing on a Monday night as well as yourselves, and thank you so much for coming. On April 20th, we have the MD Boathouse is our next topic. We'll have Tim Sexton come. If you came late, that's what our next meeting is. It'll be interesting.